Hi everyone, I'm Sandy, and this is my 1001 book countdown. Okay, so if you're not familiar with my 1001 book countdown, it is where I am reading from the 1001 books you must read before you die list. It's basically just book reviews and trying to whittle my way through this massive list. If you want to know more about that, you can certainly go out and check out my video where I talk way too much detail about the concept. But for today, we are going to go ahead and put up where I stopped last week, which was 996, and my 52 week 2021 list, which is 31. So, spoiler, I did not have a good reading week, and I did not have a good reading week because of the book on the 1001 book list that I had picked up to read this week. And what I will say is the spoiler part of that is I read one book, and I'm lucky to have read that one. And the other thing is that as a spoiler is I did not like this book. It's my lowest rated book of all year, maybe of all time. And so when I tell you what book it is, I completely understand. I am maybe in the minority for this rating because a lot of people, when I went out and looked what was the rating on Goodreads, there are a lot of 5-star, there are a lot of 4-star, far more than 2 and 1 stars. So I may be in a minority. And the other thing is I can't do this review without spoilers. So if you have not read this book and you want to read this book, I would recommend probably just, closing the video at this particular point in time. Never told anyone that. Please don't watch my video. But yeah, it wasn't a good one. So what book am I so down on this week? It is Rabbit is Rich by John Updike. So if you're not familiar with the Rabbit series, it follows a character named Harry Angstrom, who's also called Rabbit. The first book was Rabbit Run. The second one is Rabbit Redux. And then this one is Rabbit is Rich. And so in the first book, you first meet him and he's not necessarily the best person. He leaves his wife. He cheats on her with another woman. He gets her pregnant and then abandons her. Her name is Ruth. She comes back in the third story, so she's kind of an important one. In the second book, his wife has an affair with Charlie Stavros, who also comes back in the third book. I think that was in the second book. I'm all confused on which book is which at this point. But the second book has pretty much the same thing. You slowly see him start to age through those books. So in book 3, we end up back with Harry about 20 years later and 30 pounds heavier. He is working at the Toyota dealership that he and his wife inherited from his father-in-law. And the word that came to mind when I first started reading this one is smarmy, which when I looked at it is ingratiating and wheedling in a way that is perceived as insincere or excessive. He is arrogant, narcissistic character. He has been through a long portion of the book, but that would be my first kind of thoughts as far as just meeting him in this particular book. So it follows him at the dealership for a little while in the beginning of the book, and they are living with, he and his wife Janice, who he's now back with, is living with her mother, and they're living fine. They have money. They're not having any real problems right now, and until his son Nelson, who is away at college, decides to inexplicably come back home just on a very kind of urgent basis, and no one's really sure what's going on with him, and there's something troubling him, and we just don't know quite what it is. And Rabbit is not the most sympathetic character. He's more worried about the damage being done to his car than necessarily what's going on with his son. A little bit later, we see that someone that Nelson knows at school, he actually got her pregnant, and she has followed him back to where Nelson is at now, which is at their house. And long story short, they end up getting married kind of under a shotgun wedding because she is about 5 months pregnant at this particular point in time. No one seems to be overly happy about that particular event. Rabbit does cry in the church yay, Rabbit. And it's one of his only kind of empathetic or sympathetic moments in regards to his child. He keeps wanting his child to go back to school. His child wants to stay and work at the dealership, and Rabbit just thinks this is going to cause all kinds of problems. And so Rabbit and his wife Janice end up going on vacation away and with another group of couples, and they get called back because at that particular point Nelson has abandoned his new wife and their newborn child because suddenly he has decided that he wants to go back to school, and he just abandons them and leaves them by the wayside at their house. And so they come back, and the last scene is Rabbit holding his newborn grandchild in his hands. And now we get to my mini rant or my issues with this book. I definitely did not do the summary of that book justice. If you go out and look, people love this book and the prose that John Updike has and are just enamored of this book. And there's far more people that rated it 5 stars than rated it 1 star. So the issues that I had in particular in regards to this book, one, there are a number of derogatory slurs that are used in this book and to represent a wide variety of characters, including a Mexican slur, a Japanese, the anti-Arab, anti-Black words or slurs are used. There are anti-Jewish or anti-Semitic terms that are used in the conversations. And it is in the way that it's done that was so incredibly off-putting for me personally, because it made it seem like this was okay and normal and accepted behavior. And there was no negative consequences to any of those terms that were used. And for me, that is something I have very little patience for in my own life. I don't have any patience for that type of derogatory statements. So I was put off this book almost from the very beginning. And it really colored my ability to kind of work my way through this book. I also found it to be slow. I read another review out there where they said it's a long book and it moves at a glacial pace. And that is definitely something that I found. And then I also found myself procrastinating reading it because I would go out and say, I should go see what else is going on YouTube. I should go check Facebook, see what my family is up to. I can play another game on my iPad and just really was making every excuse in the world to not read this book. And if it hadn't been on my 1001 book list, I might have just DNF'd it. Because the other problem with it is how the book and the author depicts women. So Rabbit is a highly sexualized character, and he is frequently talking about sex, but the big issues that I have with it are, one, he refers to women using the C word, which I won't say on camera. He also has an episode where he has sex with his wife while she's asleep, which personally I think is just not great, a great kind of behavior, obviously. And then in addition to that, he hyper focuses and fantasizes about his friends' spouses. He hyper focuses even on someone that might actually be his daughter from the relationship that he had with the Ruth character. And she actually describes him really, really well. And it is, God, I'd forgotten what a pushy, obnoxious bastard you are, stuck on yourself from cradle to grave. And that is very true with this character. And so the other thing that happens is when they go away on vacation with this other group, they end up doing this weird wife swapping thing. And he's all upset because he doesn't get the wife that he wants. He got someone else who happens to be in love with him and is willing to do anything for him in way too much graphic detail. And in a book like this, I just, again, did not appreciate it, did not think it was right. Believe me, I don't have a problem with a smutty book. I love smutty books. They're kind of my brain candy, and they're the ones I go to if I just don't want to have to think about something and try and really absorb it. I might go read something like that. But this one, it was incredibly just like out of place and was extremely off-putting for me. And so they end up getting called back from that to go back to because Nelson at this point has abandoned his family, and Rabbit is upset because he can't stay and have sex with the other person that he really wanted to have sex with. Will one more day matter? It's just kind of like, okay, again, no. So I gave this, like I said, my lowest rating of all time, which is generous at 1.5 stars. I have a block of giving someone 1 star because I don't know, I feel like it's going to hurt the book's feelings or something. And just did not like it. And I really would love to know what I'm missing with this one, because it is one of those books that 100% lots of people love it. It won the Pulitzer Prize. And I just struggle with, is this really what we feel is the best literature of this time? It was written 40 years ago in about a period that was before that, when this type of language or behavior or this type of language might have been more acceptable. But in today's time, the fact that it made it seem like it was normal was what really was making me upset about it. And someone reading this and thinking that that type of language is okay, and it's really just not. So with that, though, this is kind of a downer of a video. I know I'm not my normal bubbly, happy self today because of this silly book. But good news is I have an answer for my A to Z tag about what book gave you a book hangover, because it's probably this one. But it is on my 1001 book list. So I get to take the number down from 996 to 995. It's also on my 52-week 2021 list. So I get to go from 31 to 30. And it is on my Pulitzer Prize list, which I don't have it put up a number for that. So I get to check that one off of my list as well. So making my list making self happy again, which is really, really good. And hopefully next week is a better reading week for me, because this book just almost broke me and broke my reading this week. Thankfully, I've picked up Greenwood already, and I've started reading that, which at least the topic is one that I can absolutely get on board with. And even someone today, when I went to get my car washed, said that's a great book because I had taken it with me to read while I was waiting. So I'm really hoping for a much better reading week. But please, if you love Rabbit is Rich, I would love to know what I'm missing. Am I making too big of a deal out of the language? Are these valid points? Have you read it and didn't see the same issue or problem? I'd love to hear your thoughts. And hopefully, let's hope for a better week next week. And with that, until next time, everyone, thanks. Bye.